Hey man, I'm Jusko from Proud Money. What does the average American make? That's what we're going to look at in this video. We'll look at some top line numbers and then break it down by age, by sex, by race, ethnicity, by type of job, all kinds of stuff. Now, these stats that I'm using here come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They come out with a report called Usual Weekly Earnings. I take those weekly earnings and multiply them by 52 to get a full year earning, which is what we're going to use in this video. This video uses the second quarter of 2025, that particular report. And then finally, before we get started, you should know that when we are talking about the average in this video, we are using average to mean typical, even though technically on the mathematical end, we are using the median, which is the middle number within a range. And we can discuss whether that is a good thing to do in the comments, but I think it is the right way to look at these numbers. So let's get started. The average annual salary is $62,192 for full-time workers 16 and above. Now, obviously, people that are 16 years old working full-time probably aren't making as much as other people, so you might also want to look at the 25 and older number, which is $65,792 as an average, so a little higher if you're 25 or above, and maybe that is more representative. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says that this is a 4.6% increase over the numbers from a year ago, and the consumer price index went up by 2.4%. So if you want to do some simple math there, you could say that Americans on average have 2.2% more buying power. All right, so let's break down those numbers a little bit further. The most obvious way to start off is men versus women. So in that category, men make on average $69,160 versus $56,056 for women, which of course is about a $13,000 difference. Now let's break things down by race or ethnicity, and I will mention here that the labels used come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so if you don't like them, blame them and not me. So white only, $63,700 as an average. Hispanic or Latino, $49,244. Black African American, $51,532. Asian, $80,756. And then you can also see those percentages. Next to those numbers is what percentage of the population that was surveyed each of those groups represented. Breaking things down by age is always interesting, so let's look at those numbers. If you are in the 16 to 19 range, $33,280. For those 20 to 24, $40,664. So obviously those numbers for full-time workers fairly low. And then you'll see when you get to 25, 34, jumps all the way to 59,000 plus, another jump up to 70,000 plus in the 35 to 44 range. Then things kind of sit in that same place up all the way through really about age 65, and then at 65 plus is when things come down a little bit and you've got that 62,000 plus average. Now, looking at average salary by education level, and note here that these numbers are for workers 25 and above. And I said earlier that the average overall was $65,728 for those workers. So those that have less than a high school diploma, did not finish high school, $39,000 as the average. With a high school diploma but no further education, $49,920. Some college or associate's degree, $56,000 plus. And then you see the college graduates, a huge jump up to 81,000 plus, and then postgraduate even higher at 99,000 plus. That's going to include your master's, your PhD, your law school, your doctor. So all of those education levels that go beyond your bachelor's degree. Now let's break things down by job type. The Bureau of Labor Statistics does its best to sort of carve up all the millions of types of jobs that are out there into some things that make sense. It's still very much not perfect, a lot of sort of vague jobs here, but we will start from sort of the top and go down in terms of the salary. What I would think of as sort of your traditional white collar workers, what they call management and professional workers, are at the top of the list at 85,000 plus as an average salary. Installation, maintenance, repair workers, 61,000 plus is ranked next within the categories that they use. We then have sales professionals at 58,000 plus. You've got construction / extraction at 53,000 plus. production workers at 51,000. And then as we go down, we've got office or administrative jobs at a little over 50,000. And then you can see that transportation, material moving, 46,000. Service jobs quite a bit further down at 39,000, a little under 40,000. And then rounding it out are farming, fishing, and forestry jobs that have the worst of the average salaries at 37,000 plus. Now, we've been using those average/median numbers, but now let's look at where your salary might fit in, how you compare to all of the workers out there when it comes to being in the top 10%, the lowest 10%, or somewhere in between. So to be in the top 10% of workers in terms of salary, you would need to make $150,852 or more. At that $150,000 level, that is roughly $75 an hour. If you look at it that way, to make the top 25%, you need to make 98,000 plus. That median number, as we've already talked about, 62,192. Now, when we go down, if you make 41,912 or below, that's going to put you in the lowest 25% of workers as of now. And then if you make 31,980 or below, that is going to put you in the lowest 10%, and that 31,980 number is roughly $16 per hour. Now, if you wanted to slice and dice those numbers even more, I've provided a link below to the actual report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. A couple shortcomings that I want to mention here. First of all, we are not talking at all about the cost of living. So obviously a job that is essentially the same job in San Francisco is usually going to pay more than that same job in, somewhere in Alabama. And so obviously the cost of living comes into play when we talk about salaries, and this report really is just giving us the averages across the board. And then secondarily is the fact that these reports do not include self-employed individuals, whether that's one person sitting in front of a computer self-employed, or that's a person that is running a business and making pretty good money out of that business. So these are salaried workers, whether that's wages or whether it is an hourly worker, but it is leaving out those self-employed people, which could skew the numbers one way or another, but we're not entirely sure which way it would skew them. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts about it, whether you want to talk about how well you are doing in comparison to everybody else, or how poorly you're doing in comparison to everybody else, or whatever else you want to say in that comment section below. Otherwise, I thank you for watching.